I guess it was just about a month ago. I would say a month almost to the day that we were talking about this story, or getting ready to talk about this story. The idea that the folks at Coding for Veterans was getting set to launch a national caravan, and we've talked about the story before, where they've set up a program for those veterans who are transitioning to civilian careers, being able to take advantage of a coding program through the University of Ottawa, and except for some of the materials you need for the courses themselves, the tuition's covered for free by Veterans Affairs. It's a grant that they would have available to it, and it's not insignificant. It's a significant amount of change, but it's a very rigorous program, and when you come out, you are equipped to dive into the world of coding, and there are all kinds of jobs available there, and they're well paying. Jeff Musson is the executive director of Coding for Veterans, and I guess it was, around September 10th you set out on your adventure, Jeff?
Yeah, Dave, we started off in Ottawa, and our caravan has been crisscrossing the country since that time, and we will be wrapping up back in Ottawa on Remembrance Day in about a month's time now.
So as you've made stops, and typically you're stopping in areas where there's a military base and military presence there, what's the reaction been?
It's been actually phenomenal. We've been through Quebec. In fact, I think that's the last time we had chatted. This week we just wrapped up in Atlantic Canada, in Halifax on Friday. And it's funny, we're in the age of COVID, we're actually kind of going old school, and we partnered in with Canadian Legions and others, where we've set up our outdoor tent information booth, call it, to chat with veterans and those interested in applying to our program.
And do you have a sense of how many new enrollments that you're going to get as a result of this?
Yeah, I can tell you, and just sort of reviewing the numbers at the halfway point of this marathon, we'll say, we've gotten enrollments have increased by about 10 times what our normal enrollment would be. So it's been well received.
Okay, so when you talk about that increase, is that worrisome? I mean, are you guys in a position where you can handle that increase?
Oh, absolutely, and that's the beauty. When this program is delivered 100% online, we don't have to increase bricks and mortar or build new classrooms. It's delivered with professors through the University of Ottawa, so it's very scalable. And I can tell you, there's 147,000 IT jobs that are projected to go unfilled in the next 12 to 18 months. So the jobs are there for all these people. So the more the merrier, as they say.
Okay, and that's great news, and I'm glad to hear that it's successful. But what I also wanted to talk to you about is a story you told me. It's about a month ago now, and we were a little leery about making it public just because there was some concern about the safety of those involved. So particularly you and some of your associates making efforts to help and support Afghans who had supported the Canadians during the war get out of Afghanistan. And it sounds like you've had a bit of a success story there.
Yeah, absolutely. And so what was interesting, when the news first hit about the situation over in Kabul, we have a lot of Afghan veterans in our program, and we decided, look, how can we support these individuals who really supported our troops in our mission over there? So we went and we raised funding and put word out with press releases and what have you, that for every Afghan interpreter that can safely make it to Canada, we're going to be able to cover their tuition to enroll in our program for those that have an interest in an IT career, so they can help support their families when they immigrate to Canada. And you don't realize, or at least I didn't, the power of the internet. And here, halfway across the world in Afghanistan, our press release got a little bit of not coverage, but it got known out there. And lo and behold, there was an interpreter that reached out to us saying, "Hey, I'm interested. I'm over here in Afghanistan. I need to get out." Right? And it was interesting because at the time, we were relying on the federal government to help these individuals get out. And unfortunately, with the Canadian embassy closing over there, it was very difficult. And so we, through individuals that we knew who were on the ground over there, were able to help these Afghan interpreters. And along the way, they ended up picking up a couple of other Afghan interpreters, and we were able to get them through technology to the border and onwards, which they're over in Pakistan right now.
So the journey, though, in terms of identifying these individuals who reached out to you, that took sort of the network that you had established here in Canada, connecting with that network on the ground over there, making sure that they were who they said they were. So that bit of intrigue and the ability to make sure that all of this was mapped out, that the technology that you point to in terms of tracking them to make sure that they were okay. At every turn, there was danger involved here in because, as you point out, there was no diplomatic support.
Yeah, absolutely. And so what was wild about this was, first thing, they actually sent us their ID. And the second thing was there were certain aspects to the mission over there in terms of identifying areas, a common kind of lingo, things that you'd have in the military that only those that were involved in the mission would know about. So even though we didn't, we're not able to do proper vetting, we had a high degree of confidence that, these individuals were kind of who they were. And between WhatsApp and sending us videos, their ID, and then really using, it sounds rudimentary, but using Google Maps. And what was interesting was, we had directed them to Abbey Gate because that's where, if you remember at the time, the airport, the gate where people were getting pushed towards. And then lo and behold, unfortunately, that explosion happened, right? And we figured, okay, no one's going to be getting out of that airport now, so let's take advantage of this chaos. And we directed them. I said, look, the safest way is going to be through Pakistan. And so there were so many abandoned cars and taxis at that airport that our interpreters actually, there were keys in the ignition, and if they weren't, they figured out how to start it. And they started their journey over land and ended up going through the Chechen border. And what was interesting was we were able to kind of track their progress. And we were almost like a coach in a marathon, or someone, swimming across Lake Ontario, where we were kind of along, coaching them along the ride. It was wild.
So you were able to monitor almost in real time their progress as they were getting to the Pakistan border. Now, when they get to the border, how did that go?
Well, that was going to be the interesting thing, right? Because these individuals really didn't have their passports, or there isn't the documentation that, say, as Canadians, we have when we travel to other countries. And we had some assets on the ground that were, and they're globally out there, but they were able to, for a significant fee, help, Afghans traverse the border. But because we were really on a shoestring budget, we really couldn't afford that. So we said, sometimes, there's a certain degree of luck that gets involved here. And so when they ended up making it to the border, they were able to convince the Pakistan border that, they were in danger. And in fact, they were, because they were getting hunted by the Taliban. And they were able to make safe passage. And what was interesting was, I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Argo, right? But, with the Iranian hostages, this was almost kind of playing out a little bit in that scenario, which to us was, it really surprised, or, it really surprised me that these tools that we use over here in Canada, WhatsApp, Track My Phone, Google Maps, were in fact the tools that we use to help these individuals get to Pakistan and eventually Islamabad.
Well, and the good news is safe and sound after all of that intrigue and effort half a world away. Jeff, thanks for the story. Thanks for you and your crew for stepping up and doing what others seem to have a challenge doing. And good luck with the rest of the caravan. We'll have to touch base next month when you wrap that up just to see how many new students you've got and new recruits.
Sounds good, Dave. Happy Thanksgiving to you and your family, too.
And to you. Jeff Musson is the Executive Director of Coding for Veterans. That's a great story, eh? Wow.